बुलेटिन में खुशामदीद। खबर आपको दें, पीटीआई जो भी कहे जवाब अगले हफ्ते देंगे। हुकूमती मुज़ाकराती कमेटी के इजलास के बाद राना सनाउल्लाह का साफ जवाब। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म के मुशीर ने कहा, पीटीआई मुतालबों का जवाब ज़ेली कमेटी तहरीर करेगी। तर्जुमान इरफान सिद्दीकी ने बताया, जुडिशल कमीशन पर अभी फैसला नहीं हुआ। हमारी मीटिंग में 7 जमातों के नुमाइंदे शरीक हुए। अरकान की आरा करीब है। कल दोबारा मीटिंग होगी।
की मीटिंग हुकूमती मुज़ाकराती कमेटी ने कुछ फाइनल किया है।
सब कमेटी बनाई है तो चार्टर ऑफ डिमांड है का जवाब तैयार करेगी।
तो 7 दिन का वक्त बानी पीटीआई की तरफ से दिया गया है कि अगर 7 दिन के अंदर जुडिशल कमीशन का क़याम नहीं होता तो मुज़ाकरात खत्म कर दिए जाएंगे।
लेकिन वो जवाब जो है वो देंगे नेक्स्ट मीटिंग में।
बैरिस्टर गौहर कहते हैं कि अगर अंदिया ना मिला जुडिशल कमीशन का तो चौथा इजलास नहीं होगा।
ठीक है जी, वो जो कहना चाहें वो कहें। हम जो जवाब तैयार करेंगे वो तहरीरी तौर पर उनकी खिदमत में पेश करेंगे।
राणा साहब, आपने कहा था कि हुकूमत के खिलाफ चार्जशीट है प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में, जुडिशल कमीशन बनाएगी हुकूमत?
जवाब तैयार होगा तो उससे पता चलेगा।
जुडिशल कमीशन बनेगा तो मुज़ाकरात होंगे। चेयरमैन तहरीक इंसाफ बैरिस्टर गौहर का ऐलान। कहा, हुकूमत तहकीकाती कमीशन बनाने का इंदिया दे तो मुज़ाकराती कमेटी के इजलास में शिरकत करेंगे। बैरिस्टर अली ज़फर कहते हैं, ट्रंप के आने से असर पड़ेगा। गजा में भी जंग बंदी हो गई। सहाफ़ी ने पूछा, क्या आर्मी चीफ और बैरिस्टर गौहर की कोई और मुलाकात हो रही है? अली ज़फर बोले, क्यों नून लीग वालों की परेशानी बढ़ा रहे हैं?
अगर नहीं बनाती चौथे इजलास में जाएंगे तो आपको तहरीरी जवाब मिलेगा।
हुकूमत अंदिया देती है कि यस हमने बनाना है, खान साहब की यही इंस्ट्रक्शन है। जब खान साहब की इंस्ट्रक्शन आ जाए दैट्स फाइनल वर्ड। अगर हुकूमत ने कहा कि हम बना रहे तो फिर तो जाएंगे। अगर हुकूमत कमीशन बना नहीं रही तो इजलास तो नहीं होगा।
ट्रंप का आना तो दुनिया को बहुत बड़ा असर होगा। अभी वो आए भी नहीं तो गाजा में सीज फायर हो गया है। हम एक्सपेक्ट करेंगे दुनिया की कोई भी मुल्क जो है हमारी सियासत में, हमारी इंटरनल अफेयर्स में मुदाखलत ना करे।
सुनने में आया कि एक और मुलाकात होने जा रही है बैरिस्टर गौहर से आर्मी चीफ की।
और परेशानी कर रहे हैं आप PMLL के रैंक से।
इतलात में बैरिस्टर गौहर ने मीटिंग के बाद आर्मी चीफ से दरख्वास्त की थी, इसलिए अलग मुलाकात हुई, लेकिन कोई बैकडोर बातचीत नहीं हो रही। वहां से यही कहा गया, सियासी बातें सियासतदानों से करें। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म के मुशीर राना सनाउल्लाह की प्रोग्राम खबर में गुफ्तगू।
तो इसी तरह से होते हैं, कोई हुक्म तो नहीं होता, बात डायलॉग से चलती है, डेडलॉग से तो नहीं चलती।
आज चेयरमैन गौहर साहब ने कह दिया ना, उनका जी हमें तो खान साहब का हुक्म है, अगर ये कमीशन पे एग्री करते हैं तो इनके साथ बैठे, वरना चौथी नशिस्त नहीं होगी। उन्होंने कहा इतना आपको मार्जिन दिया गया, कम से कम इशारा दे देंगे, हम बना देंगे, फिर हम डिटेल्स पे बात कर लेंगे।
अगर आंख के इशारे से बात बन सकती है तो मैं आंख का इशारा कर देता हूँ, तो मीटिंग करे चौथी हमारे साथ।
फिर आर्मी चीफ ने गौहर साहब से अलहदा मुलाकात की क्यों?
मीटिंग में अगर कोई एक पार्टिसिपेंट उठ के कहे कि जी मैंने कोई अलहदा बात करनी है, कोई बंदा फिर ये कहे कि जी मैंने आपकी बात ही नहीं सुननी, तो ये मुनासिब नहीं है। जो मालूम हुआ है उसके मुताबिक यही है कि कोई बैक डोर डिप्लोमेसी मुज़ाकरात कह ले वो नहीं हो रहे।
क्या है, मंसूर अली शाह अभी तक नाराज हैं कि वो चीफ जस्टिस नहीं बने?
लगता है कि वो नाराज हैं। मंसूर अली शाह साहब को बड़े मुअज़्ज़ज़ और बड़े मुहतरम हैं, उन्हें तो गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ जो केस है सुनना ही नहीं चाहिए।
तीसरी नशिस्त में वाज़ेह कर दिया था, हम यहाँ कमेटी खेले नहीं है। सादा सी बात है, मुल्क में कमीशन ऑफ इंक्वायरी बनते रहे हैं, कानून मौजूद है। पीटीआई के सेक्रेटरी जनरल सलमान अकरम राजा की प्रोग्राम खबर मोहम्मद मालिक के साथ में गुफ्तगू।
गवर्नमेंट अनाउंस करे कि इलेक्शन ये कमीशन बनेगा, उसके बाद आप लोग बैठेंगे और इसके शॉर्ट ऑफ दैट नहीं बैठेंगे।
ऐसे ही है, जो हमारी तीसरी नशिस्त थी उसमें ये बिल्कुल बात वजाहत से बता दी गई थी कि हम यहाँ कमेटी खेलने नहीं आए। ये एक बहुत ही बुनियादी और सादा बात है। इस मुल्क में कमीशन ऑफ इंक्वायरी बनते रहे हैं। अगर गवर्नमेंट अनाउंस नहीं करती कमीशन बनाने पे तैयार है तो फिर अगली सिटिंग नहीं होगी। ऐसा ही है, पहले इन प्रिंसिपल ये ऐलान हो जाए कि हम बना रही हैं, इस पे हमें इत्तेफाक है, फिर डिटेल्स की बात हो सकती है। स्केल ऑफ 1 to 10 आप कितने होपफुल हैं कि जेन्युइनली लीगल ग्राउंड्स पे फैसले होंगे? मैं बिल्कुल होपफुल नहीं हूँ। अब खान साहब के जो केसेस अब आपने अपील डाली है ये 14 साल की सजा के खिलाफ, व्हेन डू यू एक्सपेक्ट टू बी हर्ड? बिकॉज हम ये भी बातें सुन रहे हैं कि जी ये हो सकता है रूटीन में लगे केस। अगर इस मुकदमे में उनकी कन्विक्शन सस्पेंड हो जाती है तो फिर दीगर जो मुकदमात हैं उनको देखना होगा, वो भी साथ साथ चल रहे हैं, ये मामला चलेगा।
कमीशन बनना है तो 2014 वाले धरने की तहकीकात के लिए भी बनाएं। दिफा ख्वाजा आसिफ का पीटीआई को जवाब। कहा, खुलूस की कमी हो तो मुज़ाकरात का कोई नतीजा नहीं निकलता। ट्रंप के आने से अमेरिकी पॉलिसी में कोई तब्दीली नहीं आने वाली।
14 से धरने से ये कमीशन बनाना चाहिए। धरना क्यों हुआ? اس کے بعد JIT کیوں بنی, میاں نواز شریف کو کیوں گھر بھیجا گیا, RTS کیوں ڈاؤن ہوا, یہ سارے جو ہے نا یہ واقعات جو ہے ان سب کی تحقیقات ہونی چاہیے. یہ بھی شامل کر لیں. 9 مئی ہے اور 26 نومبر. مذاکرات کرنا اچھی بات ہوتی ہے, رزلٹ نکل آئے تو اور اچھی بات ہوتی ہے, لیکن اس میں خلوص کی اگر کمی ہو تو پھر رزلٹ تو نہیں نکلتا, یا مشروط کیے جائیں تو وہ بھی رزلٹ نہیں نکلتا. پاکستانی سیاست کے حوالے سے امریکہ کی پالیسی میں کوئی تبدیلی نہیں دیکھ رہا.
جمہوریت اور اسٹیبلشمنٹ سے پہلے عدلیہ کو ٹھیک کرنا ہوگا. عدالتوں نے وقت ختم ہونے کے بعد بھی نواز شریف کے لیے فیصلے سنائے. سینیٹر فیصل وابڈا کے پروگرام آف دی ریکارڈ میں گفتگو.
کہاں سے شروع ہوئی ہے؟ سب سے پہلا نظام جس کو آپ ٹھیک کریں, جمہوریت اور اسٹیبلشمنٹ بعد آپ پہلے کریں گے عدالتی نظام. سب سے پہلی چیز جو فاؤنڈیشن ہے پاکستان کی, جو ہلی بھی اپنی جگہ سے, وہ ہے عدالت, عدالتی نظام. بھٹو کو آپ نے پھانسی دے دی. 45 سال کے بعد آپ نے یہ ڈیسائیڈ کیا کہ یہ جوڈیشل مرڈر ہوگا. عدالتوں نے میاں صاحب کا ٹائم ختم ہونے کے بعد بھی ان کے کیسے سنے گئے اور فیصلے سنائے گئے. قصوروار کون ہے؟ عدالتی نظام. سب سے پہلے پاکستان میں آپ جمہوریت کے اندر, یا پاکستان کو ٹھیک کریں گے, فرگیٹ اباؤٹ جمہوریت, آپ سب سے پہلے عدالتی نظام ٹھیک کریں. عمران خان صاحب کا پاپولیرٹی گراف کیوں ہے؟ وہ ان کی نفرت. عمران خان کی ایک پاپولیرٹی ادھر ہے اور ان کی نفرت کی وجہ سے ادھر ہے.
میں عمران خان صاحب کی بات کرتا ہوں. ڈیل کریں گے,
آج آفر کریں گے, 1 منٹ کے اندر ڈیل ہوگی.
وزیراعظم کا غزہ کی تعمیر نو کے کردار ادا کرنے کا اعلان. وفاقی کابینہ کے اجلاس سے خطاب میں وزیراعظم شہباز شریف نے کہا کہ غزہ میں اسرائیل نے بڑے پیمانے پر تباہی پھیلائی. تعمیر نو میں پاکستان اپنا کردار ادا کرے گا. وزیراعظم کا کہنا تھا بلوچستان میں قتل و غارت گری پاکستان سے دشمنی ہے. ویلکم بیک. اور بات کریں گے نیو جرسی اور ایریزونا کے اٹارنی جنرلز کا امریکی صدر ٹرمپ کے ایگزیکٹو حکم نامے کو عدالت میں چیلنج کرنے کا اعلان. میٹ پلیکٹن نے پیدائشی شہریت کے حق کو عدالت میں چیلنج کرنے جا رہی ہیں. صدر کو بادشاہت طرز پر ملک چلانے کی اجازت نہیں دے سکتے. پیدائشی شہریت کا حق اس ملک کے بانیوں نے دیا تھا. آئین امریکہ میں پیدا ہونے والے بچوں کو شہریت کا حق دیتا ہے. امریکہ کا ہر دوسرا شہری کسی امیگرنٹ کی نسل ہے. قانونی کی بالادستی کے لیے کھڑا ہونے کا وقت آ گیا ہے. یہ سیاسی لڑائی نہیں بلکہ قانون کی بالادستی کی لڑائی ہے. ایریزونا کے اٹارنی جنرل نے بھی صدر ٹرمپ کے حکم نامے کو چیلنج کرنے کا اعلان کیا. اٹارنی جنرل ایریزونا نے کہا امریکی صدر کو پیدائشی شہریت کا ختم کرنے کا اختیار نہیں. پیدائشی شہریت کا حق صرف آئینی ترمیم کے ذریعے ہی تبدیل کیا جا سکتا ہے. مارکو روبیو امریکہ کے نئے وزیر خارجہ بن گئے. نائب صدر JD وینس نے مارکو روبیو سے عہدے کا حلف اٹھا لیا. اس کے بعد وہ ٹرمپ کابینہ کے پہلے رکن بن گئے. امریکی سینٹ نے نئے وزیر خارجہ کی توثیق کی تھی. نئے امریکی وزیر خارجہ محکمہ خارجہ پہنچے تو والین استقبال کیا گیا. اپنے پہلے خطاب میں کہا میرے والدین کیوبا سے تعلق رکھتے ہیں. امریکہ کے مفادات کا تحفظ اولین ترجیح ہے. وزیر داخلہ کی امریکہ صدر کی حلف برداری کے بعد کیپٹل ارینا آمد محسن نقوی کو خصوصی پروٹوکول میں کیپٹل 1 ارینا ہال میں لایا گیا. وزیر داخلہ نے پہلی نشست پر بیٹھ کر صدر ڈونلڈ ٹرمپ کا خطاب سنا. وزیر داخلہ نے ڈونلڈ ٹرمپ کو منصب سنبھالنے پر مبارکباد دی. کہا آج امریکہ کے لیے ایک تاریخی دن ہے. صدر ٹرمپ کے دور میں پاک امریکہ تعلقات کا نیا باب شروع ہوگا. کراچی کے علاقے اورنگی پیر آباد سے لاپتہ ہونے والا 14 سال کا مبشر لیاری سے مل گیا. سر سید کے علاقے سے صبح لاپتہ ہونے والی 4 سالہ بچی کو پولیس نے ڈھونڈ نکالا. پیر آباد سے 17 جنوری کو لاپتہ ہونے والے 10 سالہ ذہنی معذور آیان کا تاحال کچھ پتہ نہ چل سکا. پولیس نے بتایا اورنگی پیر آباد سے مبشر 10 جنوری کو مدرسے جاتے ہوئے لاپتہ ہو گیا تھا. لیاری سے ملنے والے بچے نے بتایا گھر والوں سے دور رہنے کے لیے دکان پر کام کر رہا تھا. دوسری جانب سر سید تھانے کی حدود میں 4 سال کی نادیہ گھر کے باہر کھیلتے ہوئے لاپتہ ہو گئی تھی. نادیہ کو پولیس نے ڈھونڈ نکالا. بچی کو والدین کے حوالے کر دیا گیا. کراچی کے علاقے گارڈن سے 2 بچوں کے اغوا ہونے کا معاملہ 8 روز گزر گئے, کوئی سراغ نہ ملا. ترجمان سندھ حکومت سیدہ تحسین چیئرمین پیپلز پارٹی اور وزیر اعلیٰ سندھ کی ہدایت پر تلاش کا کام جاری ہے. عدنان راجپوت کی رپورٹ دیکھیے.
علاقے گارڈن سے لاپتہ 2 بچوں کا تاحال کچھ پتہ نہ چل سکا. بچوں کی تلاش کے لیے سندھ حکومت نے بھی ایکشن تیز کر دیا. तर्जुमान सिंध हुकूमत सैयदा तहसीन आबदी के मुताबिक केस को जल्द हल करने के लिए चेयरमैन बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी और वजीर आला सिंध की हिदायत है। पुलिस ने ग्रैंड ऑपरेशन की तैयारियां कर ली हैं।
जिस तरह पुलिस अपनी 100% एफर्ट कर रही है और आज भी रात में एक बड़ा ग्रैंड ऑपरेशन करने जा रहे हैं एसएसपी साहब अपनी टीम के साथ, जिसमें 8 एसएचओस और 2 डीएसपीज जो हैं वो उस ऑपरेशन में का पार्ट बनेंगे। तो वी आर वेरी होपफुल जी कि ये बच्चों को हम जल्द ही रिकवर करा सकेंगे।
एसएसपी सिटी आरिफ अजीज का कहना है कि 20 से जायद मुश्तबा अफराद को हिरासत में लिया गया।
लियारी से हमने कुछ लोगों को अरेस्ट किया था, उनको हम लेकर आए, उनको इन्वेस्टिगेट किया। कंटिन्यू हमारा ऑपरेशन चल रहा है और ये तकरीबन कुछ 30-40 लोगों तक पहुंच चुका है। सिंध पुलिस की तरफ से ऐलान भी किया है कि जो हमारी मदद करेगा हम उसको 5 लाख रुपए का इनाम भी देंगे।
तर्जुमान सिंध हुकूमत ने बताया कि केस के हवाले से पुलिस को मुस्बत लीड मिली है, जल्द केस हल कर लिया जाएगा। कैमरामैन मुस्तफा मिराज के साथ अदनान राजपूत, ARY न्यूज कराची।
कराची के इलाके गुलशन इकबाल से 15 साल लड़की का मुबीना अगवा। अहले खाना ने सिक्योरिटी गार्ड के खिलाफ लड़की को वरगलाकर साथ ले जाने का मुकदमा दर्ज करवाया। सलमान लोधी की रिपोर्ट।
कराची के इलाके गुलशन इकबाल मस्कन चौरंगी के करीब रिहायशी 15 साल जहरा बतूल को मुबैना तौर पर सिक्योरिटी गार्ड ने वरगलाकर अगवा कर लिया। बच्ची के वालिदैन ने इल्जाम लगाया कि 17 जनवरी को बेटी घर से निकली और वापस न आई। तलाश करते रहे लेकिन कुछ न पता चल सका।
मेरी बच्ची 4 दिन से लापता है। गवर्नर सिंध समाज और गवर्नमेंट के जितने भी सुबह के जितने भी महकमे उनसे अपील करता हूँ कि बराए मेहरबानी मेरी बच्ची को लाके दीजिए। मेरी बच्ची मुझे दीजिए। मेरी बच्ची 15 साल उसकी एज है।
पुलिस ने वालिदैन की दरखास्त पर सिक्योरिटी गार्ड के खिलाफ अगवा का मुकदमा दर्ज कर लिया। पुलिस हुकाम का कहना है कि सिक्योरिटी गार्ड की तलाश के लिए छापे मारे जा रहे हैं। कैमरामैन अदील खान के साथ सलमान लोधी, ARY न्यूज कराची।
आपको इस वक्त ले चलेंगे अमेरिकी सदर व्हाइट हाउस में प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करें।
A nice country, by the way, comes in from Canada and it comes all the way through California. And they're restricting it. You even have the half pipes, you know, the half pipes, the cut pipes, big ones, bigger than this room. And they're going all the way down and they're bone dry and they could be loaded up with water. No, but isn't it incredible that they don't do it? And it's to protect the Delta smelt. It's a fish that's doing poorly anyway. But I said, how are you protecting the Delta smelt by not giving it water? It's a fish. It needs water. Nobody can answer that question. Well, let me do this first.
Are you open to Elon buying TikTok?
Say it?
Are you open to Elon buying TikTok?
I would be if he wanted to buy it, yeah.
And on your inauguration,
I'd like Larry to buy it too. I have the right to make a deal. So the deal I'm thinking about, Larry, let's negotiate in front of the media. The deal I think is this, and I've met with owners of TikTok, the big owners. It's worthless if it doesn't get a permit. It's not like, oh, you can take the U.S. The whole thing is worthless. With a permit, it's worth like $1 trillion. So what I'm thinking about saying to somebody is buy it and give half to the United States of America, half, and we'll give you the permit. And they'll have a great partner, the United States. And they'll have something that's actually more valuable because they have the ultimate partner, and the United States will make it very worthwhile for them in terms of the permits and everything else. But so think of it, you have an asset that has no value or has $1 trillion value. It all depends on whether or not the United States gives the permit. So what I'm saying is let the United States give the permit and the United States should get half. Sounds reasonable. What do you think?
Sounds like a good deal to me, Mr. President.
Yeah, he can afford it too.
Mr. President, you're a president who has long said that you back the blue, but aren't you sending the message that assaulting officers is okay with these pardons?
No, the opposite. In fact, I'm going to be letting 2 officers from Washington Police, D.C. I believe they're from D.C., but I just approved it. They were arrested, put in jail for 5 years because they went after an illegal, and I guess something happened where something went wrong. And they arrested the 2 officers and put them in jail for going after a criminal, a rough criminal, by the way. And I'm actually releasing. No, I am the friend of police, more than any president that's ever been in this office.
More than 400 of the people that you pardoned, though, assaulted officers. So I want to ask you about the Vice President, J.D. Vance. He said, this is a week ago, he said, if you committed violence on January 6th, obviously you should not be pardoned. Why is your vice president wrong?
Well, only for one reason. They've served years in jail. They should not have served, excuse me, and they've served years in jail, and murderers don't even go to jail in this country. And we had 1,500. We have 16 under review. As you know, we commuted about 16 of them because it looks like they could have done things that were not acceptable for a full pardon. But these people have served years of jail, and their lives have been ruined. And in many cases, listen to me for a second. Stop interrupting. They've served years in jail, and if you look at the American public is tired of it. Take a look at the election. Just look at the numbers on the election. We won this election in a landslide because the American public is tired of people like you that are just one-sided, horrible people in terms of crime. You don't talk about all the people that have been killed and what happens to those murderers. Murderers get no time. You take a look at some of these DAs. They go after political opponents, but they don't go after people that shoot people in the street. They're caught. They know where they're living. They know everything. They don't even go up to pick them up anymore. They just let them live there. They know all about it. They have their pictures. They have the tape of the shooting, and they don't even go up and you're talking about this. No, we pardoned people that were treated unbelievably poorly. In the history of our country, there's never been anything take place like this. They're still looking for them, but they're not looking for the murderers, the people that are killing everybody. We are, though, and we're getting them out of the country. We just started that. We're getting them out of the country, and they're going to be gotten out of the country fast. They came in illegally from jails and from prisons. They killed many people. Some of them killed many people. About 50% of them killed more than one person. They were released into our country. That's what we're focused on, not the kind of nonsense you're talking about.
You've called for a ceasefire in Ukraine. If Vladimir Putin doesn't come to the table to negotiate with you, will you put additional sanctions on Russia?
Sounds likely.
And do you think that the war should be frozen currently along
The
with
war
our
should have
battle
never
lines?
started. If you had a competent president, which you didn't, the war wouldn't have happened. The war in Ukraine would have never happened if I were president. But that couldn't happen because the election was rigged. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President, there's been some debate within your orbit over whether or not to keep or eliminate H-1B visas. What's your position on that? Do you want to keep H-1Bs or do you want to get rid of them?
I like both sides of the argument, but I also like very competent people coming into our country, even if that involves them training and helping other people that may not have the qualifications they do. But I don't want to stop. And I'm not just talking about engineers. I'm talking about people at all levels. We want competent people coming into our country. And HB1, I know the program very well. I use the program. Maitre d's, wine experts, even waiters, high-quality waiters. You got to get the best people. Now, then you go into people like Larry, and he needs engineers, and Massa needs, and this gentleman needs engineers like nobody's ever needed engineers, right? So we have to have the quality people coming in. Now, by doing that, we're expanding businesses, and that takes care of everybody. So I'm sort of on both sides of the argument, but what I really do feel is that we have to let really competent people, great people come into our country, and we do that through the H-1 program.
Mr. President, are you looking to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico in an effort to force negotiations sooner on USMCA?
No, it's really not on USMCA. It has nothing to do with that. They've allowed, both of them, Canada very much so, they've allowed millions and millions of people to come into our country that shouldn't be here. They could have stopped them, and they didn't. And they've killed 300,000 people last year, my opinion, have been destroyed by drugs, by fentanyl. The fentanyl coming through Canada is massive. The fentanyl coming through Mexico is massive. And people are getting killed, and families are being destroyed. I mean, the son gets killed, and the family is a basket case for the rest of their lives. I mean, I've seen mothers that thought they'd heal. They never heal. They say it gets worse with time. It gets worse with time. They lose their boy. They lose their baby. They lose their young daughter to fentanyl poisoning. And I had that talk with President Xi the other day, too, of China. I said, we don't want that crap in our country. We got to stop it. I would have stopped it. I had a deal with him where he was going to give the maximum penalty, which in China is the death penalty for drug dealing. And he was all said he was going to give the maximum penalty to fentanyl dealers. If they send to the United States, they were going to get the death penalty. And of course, Biden didn't pick that up. I had that deal all done. It was all wrapped up. We were going to have it done. And then the election went, let's put it nicely, didn't go the proper way. I'm trying to be nice about it. It was rigged. And we had an incompetent president elected, and he never followed up on that deal. But he should have followed up, because if they got the death penalty, they wouldn't be sending fentanyl to Mexico, Canada, and other places.
Mr. President, how much will the
We're thinking about that too. We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada.
How soon on those tariffs?
Probably February 1st is the date we're looking at. For Mexico and China, we're talking about approximately 25%.
Update on the Gaza ceasefire, and are you planning to travel to the Middle East soon?
We're thinking about going to the Middle East, not yet. We have a thing called the hostages are coming back going on right now, and they are coming back. Some of them have been very damaged. You look at the young lady with her hand practically blown off. You know how that happened, right? Did you know how that happened? When you find out, you're not going to be too happy because it was terrible. But the hostages are starting to come back. If I weren't here, they wouldn't be back ever. They would have never come back. They would have all died. If this were done a year earlier, if Biden would have done this deal a year and a half, 2 years ago, or frankly, it should have never happened. October 7th should have never happened. Nobody should be dead. But through weakness, they allowed it to happen, and then it was a disaster from them. But you go back just 6 months ago, many of these young people were living. Young people don't die like that. They're just dying. And young people aren't dying at 22 and 23 years old. They don't die. But now they're dying, and you wonder why they're dying. They're being killed, and they have been killed. But they say 6 months ago, you would have had 11 more living hostages. Think of that. 6 months ago. But Biden couldn't get it done, and it was only the imposition that I put on as a deadline that got it done. But it's a very sad situation. It should have never happened. I'll tell you, 2 things should have never happened. 3 things. Inflation should have never happened. It would have never happened except for what they did to energy and their crazy spending. And Ukraine would have never happened. Never. By the way, Russia never would have gone into Ukraine. I had a very strong understanding with Putin that it would have never, ever happened. He disrespected Biden. Very simple. He disrespects people. He's smart. He understands. He disrespected Biden. And also, the Middle East would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. It would have never happened. October 7th would have never happened. But it did happen. So this is the cards I've been given. And we're getting the hostages back. That would have never happened under Biden. They would have never come back. They were just dying not that slowly. They were dying or being killed. But that was what was happening.
Are you going to keep sending weapons to Ukraine, or are you going to turn off the tap soon?
Well, we're looking at that. We're talking to Zelensky. We're going to be talking with President Putin very soon. And we'll see how it all happens. We're going to look at it very soon. One thing I do feel, the European Union should be paying a lot more than they're paying, because under Biden, I mean, we're in there for $200 billion more. Now, it affects them more than it affects us. We have an ocean in between, right? Little thing called an ocean. The European Union should equalize. We're in there for $200 billion more than the European Union. I mean, what are we, stupid? I guess the answer is yes, because they must think so. But the European Union takes advantage of us tremendously on trade. And they now take advantage of, and always have. If I didn't get involved years ago, in my first term, one of the first things I noticed was that they're not paying enough. They're not paying. And a lot of those countries weren't even paying, the NATO countries. They weren't paying. Only 7 out of 28 were paying. We were one of them. And Poland was one. And they had a few of them that were paying, and some were paying very proudly. Usually the closer to the borderline of Russia they were, the faster they paid, okay? The ones that were further away tended not to pay so fast. And one thing on that, I think they should lift their number not to 2%, but to 5%. NATO should be at 5%, not at 2%. 2% is ridiculous, yeah.
The U.S. President Xi, in your conversation about Ukraine, you asked him to get involved in helping settle that. Can you tell us about that?
I did, yeah. I said, you ought to get it settled because he's not done very much on that. He's got a lot of power, like we have a lot of power. I said, you ought to get it settled. We did discuss it, yeah.
Do you intend to continue selling products that benefit yourself personally while you're president?
Well, I don't know if it benefited. I don't know where it is. I don't know much about it other than I launched it. I heard it was very successful. I haven't checked it. Where is it today?
You made a lot of money, sir.
How much?
Several $1 billion, it seems like, in the last several days.
Several billion? That's peanuts for these guys.
Sir, you talked about the letter from President Biden. Can you give us some sense, broadly speaking?
Yeah, he wrote me a nice letter. I mean, I did open it last night. And I didn't know. Peter said, did you get the letter? I said, wait a minute, let's see the letter. It's sort of a tradition. You put it in the drawer, especially of the beautiful Resolute desk, right? And I opened the drawer, and there it was. It said to number 47. And it was a very nice letter. I mean, I could show it because I think it was a nice letter. Maybe I will. I think just basically it was a little bit of an inspirational type letter, you know. Enjoy it, do a good job. Important, very important, how important the job is. But I think it was a nice letter. I think I should let people see it because it was a positive for him in writing it. I appreciated the letter.
Were security concerns at all a factor when deciding to move your inauguration indoors?
No, not at all. No, not at all. It was just cold. Look, if we would have, you know, I just went out to the helicopter, right, we said goodbye. That's a tradition. As long as before it used to be a stagecoach, and then helicopters came along. But that's been a tradition. You go out and you do that. And we stood there for 10 minutes, and I'll tell you what, people would not have been able to get through that day. That was cold. It was sort of interesting. Don't let the sun fool you. Tell me something. Sunny days can get very cold, can't they? Because that was so freezing yesterday. You couldn't have gotten through it. It would have been. And the answer is no, it wasn't security. With that being said, I thought the Capitol, the Rotunda, was beautiful. 72 degrees, unbelievable sound. You know, it's like being in an opera house. I could see people wanting to do it there rather than outside.
Why did you remove John Bolton's security clearance, sir?
Because I think there was enough time. It's we take a job. You take a job. You want to do a job. We're not going to have security on people for the rest of their lives. Why should we? I thought he was a very dumb person, but I used him well because every time people saw me come into a meeting with John Bolton standing behind me, they thought that he'd attack them because he was a warmonger. He's the one that got us involved, along with Cheney and a couple of others, convinced Bush, which was a terrible decision, to blow up the Middle East. You know, we blew up the Middle East and we left. We got nothing out of it except a lot of death. We killed a lot of people, and John Bolton was, one of those guys, a stupid guy. But no, you can't have that for life. You shouldn't expect it for life.
You mentioned with President Zelensky. Will that take place here, and when and where will you meet with him?
I don't know. I mean, look, President Zelensky would like to have peace. He's told me that very strongly. He'd like to have peace, but it takes two to tango. We'll see what happens.
When will you meet with President Putin?
Anytime they want, I'll meet. I'd like to see that end. Millions of people are being killed, and they're being killed. It's a vicious situation, and they're now largely soldiers. A lot of people have been killed in the cities. They look like demolition sites. Buildings, massive buildings bombed and coming down. The thing with Ukraine is that many more people died than you're reporting. You're not reporting the real numbers, and I'm not blaming you for that. I'm blaming maybe our government for not wanting to release those numbers. Many more people died than what you know about. When those big buildings come down and they say 2 people were injured, no. Many people, thousands of people are being killed. But the real killing now is on the war front. It's a very flat land. And the only thing that stops a bullet is somebody's body. and you have young soldiers. So Russia's lost about 800,000 soldiers now. Ukraine's lost about 600 or 700,000. I think the numbers are low that they're giving out. But they've lost massive numbers of young soldiers. And that war should stop. It's very flat. It's beautiful farmland, and it's flat and really beautiful in a different kind of a way, but they don't have any protection. The only thing that stops a bullet is a body. And those bodies are stopping a lot of bullets, and they're being decimated, both sides.
Your conversation with President Xi, what did you tell him in terms of when to expect tariffs? And what can he do to avoid them?
About which one? About tariffs? We didn't talk too much about tariffs, other than he knows where I stand. Look, I put large tariffs on China. I've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars. Until I was president, China never paid not 10 cents to the United States. With me, they paid hundreds of $600 billion or so, or more than that even, of tariffs. And if I didn't do that, you wouldn't have a steel mill open in the United States right now. You wouldn't have one steel mill open in the United States. So what I did is I saved the steel industry. I saved other industries too with other tariffs. Other countries are big abusers also. It's not just China. China's an abuser, but the European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly. They don't take our cars. They don't take our cars at all. They don't take our farm products, essentially. They don't take very much. We have a $350 billion deficit with the European Union. They treat us very, very badly. So they're going to be in for tariffs. It's the only way you're going to get back. It's the only way you're going to get fairness. You can't get fairness unless you do that. But the European Union's treated us very badly. But essentially, everybody treats us badly. Everybody treats us badly. Yes, go ahead. Because we allow them to. Because we've had stupid people doing this, and we can't have. I'd like to have these three people negotiate for us, just for 1 week, and we'd be a rich country again. But we'll be rich.
Mr. President, on AI data centers, will you rescind President Biden's executive order that opens up federal land?
On which centers?
On data centers. Will you rescind President Biden's executive order that opens up federal lands for data centers and energy production?
No, I wouldn't do that. That sounds to me like it's something that I would like. I'd like to see federal lands opened up for data centers. I think they're going to be very important. Again, we have a lot of competition for that. So it's an honor to have these three great people, great CEOs and great geniuses, all three. It's an honor that they want to come to our country, but we're going to make it as easy as we can for them because other countries want them to. I'm going to have to go now. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Do you have TikTok on your phone?
No, but I think I might put it there. I think I'll get it right now. By the way, again, we won the young vote. I think I won it through TikTok. So I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
अमरीकी सदर व्हाइट हाउस में न्यूज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस उन्होंने कहा बाइडेन इंतजामिया की इंतकामी कार्रवाई का निशाना बनने वाले अफराद को माफ़ी दी। उन्होंने कहा कि बाइडेन ने अपनी फैमिली और मुजरिमों को सदारती माफ़ी दी। H1 प्रोग्राम के जरिए बेहतरीन लोग अमरीका आ रहे हैं। अमरीकी सदर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का मसनूई जहानत प्रोजेक्ट का ऐलान। उन्होंने कहा कि अगर मैं उस वक्त सदर होता तो यूक्रेन की जंग शुरू ही ना होती। कनाडा से अमरीका में लाखों लोग और मचात आ रही है। एलन मस्क अगर टिकटॉक खरीदना चाहेंगे तो डील करा दूंगा। टिकटॉक के मालिकान से मुलाकात हुई है। एलन मस्क अगर टिकटॉक खरीदना चाहेंगे तो मैं डील करा दूंगा। उन्होंने कहा स्टारगेट फौरी तौर पर AI इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की तामीर शुरू करेगी। सदर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का $500 अरब के स्टारगेट AI प्रोजेक्ट का ऐलान। इससे 1 लाख मुलाजमतें पैदा होंगी। ओपन AI, सॉफ्ट बैंक, ऑरेकल AI में $500 अरब की सरमायाकारी करेगी। उन्होंने कहा कि मसनूई जहानत प्रोजेक्ट का ऐलान करते हैं। H1 प्रोग्राम के जरिए बेहतरीन लोग अमरीका आ रहे हैं। उन्होंने कहा कि बाइडेन ने अपनी फैमिली और मुजरिमों को सदारती माफ़ी दी। बाइडेन इंतजामी की इंतकामी कार्रवाई के निशाने वाले अफराद को माफ़ी दी। ये कहना था अमरीकी सदर का अपने मीडिया से गुफ्तगू में। अमरीकी सदर ट्रंप के व्हाइट हाउस में पहली मीडिया ब्रीफिंग के दौरान कई बार सहाफ़ियों से तकरार भी हुई। उन्होंने कहा कि मैं उस वक्त सदर होता तो यूक्रेन की जंग शुरू ही ना होती। कनाडा से अमेरिका में लाखों लोग मंशात आ रही हैं।